Rebel Love Show. I am Rob Rebel. We are airing live. Today is October 27th, 2013. You can find me at Voluntary Rebel on Twitter, Facebook.com/The Rebel Love Show. And today's co-host is none other than Joel Valenzuela. He is the new mover to the Free State Project, editor at the Desert Links. How's it going, Joel?
I'm doing just fantastic, mostly due to the fact that I'm on the show.
Well, me too. So, New Hampshire, how is it?
Well, it's pretty good today. It's finally cold enough to break out the sweater vest and the pea coat, which is, I don't know, I miss the cold weather, so I like it.
There you go. You're looking very trendy, very hipsterish.
Is that a thinly veiled insult?
No. You're a young guy compared to me. You can be trendy. I can't be trendy. I'm too old to be trendy nowadays.
You never outgrow classiness.
I suppose so. So what's give me a status report on 1 month in on the Free State Project for you. How's it feel?
Well, it's feeling really great. I've been here almost a month. The 30th will make it a month. And so far it's pretty epic. It's the real strength of this place is the community of people that moved out here and the connections. It's kind of I guess it separates, to use the old biblical comparison, separates the wheat from the chaff. It sort of separates the people who just talk about what's wrong with the world today and the people who are prepared to do anything about it. And I guess you could do something from anywhere in the world, but it seems like the people who try really resolve to do something great to change this world all came right here. And then when you're a mover, and I don't mean movers and you move to the Free State, but when you're a mover and you move things, you're not just a talker. When you're a mover and you get together with other movers, great things tend to happen.
Well, FSP did reach 15,000 signers the other day. Is that like the huge thing for everyone there that's already moved?
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's what, 3/4 of the 20,000.
Didn't they just get? Didn't Free State Project just get how many movers? 1,400 now.
About that.
Movers, something like that. Man, I remember when it was like 900, like at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's crazy. My first week there was a new movers party, and there was over a dozen. There's like 14, 15 people just who moved that week, and so the momentum is really starting to pick up, and each new milestone is going to be more and more until finally,
Well, yeah, the momentum going in, like, I mean, they've almost doubled how many people they already have moved in a year, and that's before they even reach the goal of 20,000 for even start the move. Yeah, to me, I'm a Free State Project participant, so I'm jealous you got there before I did. So I hope to be there sooner rather than later. But
you're still going to get there in time to be one of the early people, because there's a few there's a few of the original Keene crowd especially who got there way before anyone, and there was nothing to go to. They just came, and it was another place, and they had to start this whole alternative system by themselves. They had to start there was no activism scene, there was no agorist scene, there was nothing of that. They just had to just start from nothing, and now there's actually something to go to, especially in Manchester. I mean, Keene is still what people think about when they think about the Free State Project, but Manchester actually has more Free Staters and a bigger activism center.
And what are Manchester Free Staters up to? What's going on in Manchester?
Well, just today I sort of bailed on it, but there was a trash pickup thing going on the highway, organized.
I saw photos on Facebook of that.
Yeah. It turned out really well, and there's a little bit of a stir right now because today they rolled out the bearcat because there was some shooting. Just about literally a stone's throw from where I am right now, and there's some shooting, and it was two minors that were involved, and it seems like that's enough to roll out the SWAT team and have the bearcat hit the streets.
Was
And
anybody shot, or was it just a shooting?
it was a kid shot, and the other one is up. Well, last I heard, was still up there. And instead of, I mean, then
I didn't know Manchester had a bearcat. I knew Keene and now Concord did. I didn't know they already had one in Manchester.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. This, the reports I heard, but it's more who doesn't have one these days.
Yeah, I noticed like almost now it's like every time I read the news, like some city somewhere, some small town American city has a tank now. Uh, why? I have no idea, but well, I do have an idea why, but
Of course,
um, it's
mostly
amazing.
for.
It's amazing how many people like go along with it.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's not really something that's a very useful thing to have for a police department. It's not like it finds a lot of use. It's
Well,
not.
it is if they're fighting terrorists, like they considered a Free State Project.
Well, even terrorists and stuff, from what I've heard, it's not a very um, IED resistant vehicle, and it's not a wartime vehicle. It's just an armored thing that's meant to look scary and oh my gosh, and it's for the most part, if you have something your normal SWAT team can't handle, then it's probably going to be beyond the Bearcat too. But it's more of a look at us and our big tank, and then it's just an excuse thing. That's the thing. It's not even a real need, and if it were a need, it's not even a good um, and a good means to the end of keeping the people safe, purportedly. It's just a pork barrel spending kind of thing. It's like we want our tank just because we want our tank. Sort of
Yeah.
like a lot of big cities want a light rail system or some public transportation system like that, just so they can feel like a big city. And it did just complete like Phoenix did that a few years ago, and it was a very expensive project to build a light rail. And in fact, they estimated that it could buy every family a new car for the price that it took to build this thing, excluding fares, etc. And I happen to like public transportation, but I used this light rail a few times while I lived in Phoenix, and it just is not that useful. You can't use it to go to work. It's not. It's just whenever there's a game downtown, or like the Diamondbacks are playing, everyone jumps on the light rail. Other than that, it's just no one uses it. Just a huge waste, just because the city felt like they needed this vestige of, I don't know, progress, societal progress, and the Bearcats probably like that too.
Well, like we'll change the subject over to but the Bearcats have been more than covered in the Free State Project and whatnot. Like my whole thing with I'm going on a little rant about public transportation.
Yeah.
Now, see, I use public. I mean, I'm in Chicago. It's hard to use a car around here. We like to use it from time to time. Now, my thing is, I wish it wasn't public. I wish it was private. I wish that there was like competing bus services and competing train services and whatnot. Instead of, I mean, they're technically some of them are technically considered. Well, it depends. In Chicago, there's two different bus companies. There's the CTA and there's PACE. CTA is actually the Chicago Transit Authority. But then there's PACE, which operates all in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, they're only there because of wheeling and dealing with government authorities, where there isn't any competition that's allowed to come in. They're the only game in town. So in reality, I mean, it's public, but it's not.
Exactly.
I wish there was like competition in it because it would.
Yeah, and there is. I mean, in some cities there have been private bus systems that have been created and have been very effective and cheap until the government gets involved and shuts them down.
There was a I don't have the article in front of me, but I think it was in Florida somewhere. Technically, it's they just like most cities still you can't they don't allow competition in the market. So these college students had like this great idea to rent a bus / truck or whatnot that would have a huge billboard on it, one that was like moving billboards or whatnot that you see on the roads, and but there was also a bus, and they were offering rides for free, but they made that back in ad revenue alone just by driving that truck around with the advertisement, and they got shut down because they were stealing profit away from the city because no one was using the city bus, everyone was using them because it was free, and they were making money off of it because all they were is selling advertisement.
Yeah, well, it sounds like the American dream. And like every good dream, there's always some asshole to wake you up from it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they here you go, like a couple of young entrepreneurs coming up with like some great idea, something that it's not really done, offering a free service and making money at the same time. And apparently the city didn't like that and they shut it down. I forgot the name of which city in Florida it is, but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Um,
Well, as for public transportation, and again, drawing back to my Arizona experience, there's the super shuttle that goes from, I mean, it's been called different things before, and there's a few of them. They go between the border, Douglas or Agua Prieta on the Mexican side. They go to Phoenix and stop in Tucson, Sierra Vista, etc. And that's the most, it's a very reliable, very good way of just getting up and back through between the cities. And it's, I mean, I've ridden it several times before. It's really quick, efficient thing, and it's basically run by a couple of Mexican entrepreneurs. Basically, none of the passengers ever speak English on that thing. It's an entirely um, entrepreneurial thing set up for Mexican migrant workers. And as far as I know, the state hasn't gotten really involved at all. And so that's why it's so efficient and it just works really well. Anytime you're in Phoenix and need to get down to the border, when a good 6 hour drive, a 4 hour drive, good 4 hour drive, instead of trying to figure out, oh, car, whatever. If you have no ride, you can just hop on the super shuttle. They leave like every half hour, hour, and just, there we go. All because of the market.
yeah, no, for sure. So, you're gonna go to have you explored New Hampshire besides just being in Manchester?
A little. I work in Bedford, which is an outskirts. I work in Derry, too, another sort of suburb. I've been up to Ware, which is northwest. I've been up to Concord. I've been to Newmarket, Hampton, and Portsmouth, the whole seacoast area. So I've probably hit about a good quarter to third of the state so far. Just
You
need
gonna
to go
you
west
gonna
at
are you
some
gonna go to the Keenvention next week?
Actually, not because I'm going to be in Boston for the Students for Liberty conference promoting the Free State Project.
Oh, well, it's a worthy reason not to go to that, I suppose.
Exactly. I would have.
Yeah.
I'm going to be tabling for the Free Staters, so I mean, as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, all the good work we're doing here, it really helps to just keep up the, for lack of a better word, the evangelism, spreading the gospel, the good word of the Free State. Praise the
No,
Lord.
here's something that I always kind of was always thought about. Like I can always relate to someone who's very religious and feels like they need to spread the word of God. Because like most people that get this far down the rabbit hole in regards to liberty and self-ownership and all that jazz, and they sign up for the Free State Project, they feel the need that they got to tell everyone, in the world what it is and why why you should embrace liberty instead of statism and all that jazz. What's your take on that? Am I
Well,
wrong that we kind of like act as if we're very religious, but we're not?
well, it's something that we definitely believe, and in one way, it parallels religion in seeing the world through a different worldview than other people. And as for the evangelism thing, as far as generically the philosophy of liberty goes, um, the message we were spreading is mostly kind of a downer message, which is this world that you see that you think is kind of okay. It's like, look how awful everything is. It's kind of a downer message, but that's why I love the Free State Project, because this is the hope. This is the positive side of that whole thing. This is where people are actually going and getting things done outside of the state. This is where you can. This is the proverbial Galt's Gulch, where you can actually see what the world can be like, when we operate outside of coercive action. And so that's the message. I mean, as much as I'd love to just talk about liberty all day long to other people, this specific part of the message of liberty, that there is a place where stuff is happening. That's the thing that's worth spreading. That's the actual literal good news. This is the Free State Project is the good news in the sea of darkness.
I completely agree. Like like for me, my whole transition from being a statist to going down the conservative rabbit hole from my perspective all the way down into the Free State Project.
Mm-hmm.
you can only learn about how bad things are and how bad the government is to a point where like, all right, now what? Well, the Free State Project and whatnot is, and the message of liberty is the now what? Like, okay, now I know everything's bad, but what, what do I go? Where do I go from here? But I agree. If you're a liberty, if you have liberty at your heart, you've embraced the non-aggression principle as your philosophical guidelines. You need to get to New Hampshire as soon as you can. So here's a question. Now this has kind of been like out of the news lately for the most part.
Right.
What's your thoughts on what's going to happen to Adam Kokesh? Because didn't his lawyer quit or like stop? Not quit, but is no longer representing him. I mean, like he just like pleaded. He just now pleaded not guilty, like on the 24th or whatnot, and which is like months after he was even arrested. I don't know, man. I don't have high hopes for him.
There's a lot of stuff going on with that whole thing. A lot of private issues between him and his staff and his friends, etc. That I'm not going to be in touch.
Well, I don't want to get in touch. I don't want to get into the whole subject of
it's
drama on his team. I'm just talking about whether or not he's ever going to how soon he's going to get out of a cage for possessing a firearm in Freedom Plaza in the capital of the free country on the planet named United States.
Well, I can follow my gut feeling. My gut feeling is he's going to be away for a long time, but not too long. Just long enough for people to start forgetting who he was again. And then just long enough so that he's not just back at it in a second. And, it's like he never doesn't skip a beat. They're going to make him skip a beat, and then he's going to get out and then see what he can piece together from his life from there, I guess.
Well, I'm sure he'll be. I'm not worried about him when he gets out. I'm sure he'll be fine when he gets out. But especially with his lawyer not representing him anymore, and the fact it took them that long to do this, I think they're going to try and, unfortunately, make an example out of him and put him away for a few years. Unfortunately, it's sad to see. Well, I know. I mean, they've already put him away. They had him in solitary confinement for like a month, 2 months. How he's a dangerous person, where people that do violent crimes get in there actually for a shorter amount of time. I mean, he's already served a long period of time as it is. Exactly.
And with my experience in the whole public relations realm, it seems like it's a very carefully crafted stance. You can't be too mean to the guy because then all of a sudden he's a martyr, and you can't be too easy on him or he encourages other people. There's that midway point that they're aiming at where they make sure they're just hard enough on him to dissuade anyone from doing the same thing he did, but then they're not quite mean enough so someone can say, oh, look, he was right, look, the system is yada yada. They're picking exactly the perfect little option for that, and which any fool would have known would have happened.
Yeah,
so I think that his fate in that terms is just not much.
But go ahead.
I just don't think his fate is that much up in the air as far as, well, what if this, what if that? It's like we know what's going to happen. This has happened before. Like, it reminds me of Irwin Schiff, the illustrious Peter Schiff's father. No one cared about his tax evasion. It was when he started encouraging others to do the same publicly that he became a threat, and they just got rid of him for basically ever. And that basically his son has not followed in his father's footsteps to the same degree because of that. Because it's like, okay, it's not time yet that we can do that.
Well, I mean, I think anyone that does tax evasion should be held up as a hero, in my opinion, because they're literally standing up against the state saying, come and take it. I understand why some people pay taxes. I get it, because you don't want to be kidnapped at gunpoint and thrown in a cage for holding onto your own property. I mean, it is what it is. Unfortunately, the average person in this country thinks that tax evasion is a horrible crime that needs punishment. That I never got over that. I know even at my even when I was still a statist, because everyone's a statist, beforehand. Even when I was a statist, I still believed that taxation was wrong, that it's theft, that it shouldn't happen. But I still believe somehow we can fund the government through other means.
Well, and
But
yes, and we can, and that's the point that all these services, these services for society to function properly, are all possible through voluntary means. And I know there's a lot of nice, normal, really reasonable, people, liberty lovers, who still say, I don't mind paying taxes because I don't mind doing my part for society, etc. And they're absolutely right. What they don't quite grasp is that, well, if you don't mind paying taxes, then why don't we pay it voluntarily? And that's the big test is up here in the Free State Project, with people building communities that they're operating outside of the whole governmental system. It's a test to see how well that thing can work, and how well can dispute resolution work, how well can people fund public works of any kind, all that without a coercive hand of the government. And as soon as that gets proven, watch how quickly coercive government goes away.
Well, we need to get more people there before that can happen. We definitely need to get more people there. Here's a question. I see people in the Free State Project, and even self-proclaimed voluntarists and anarchists and whatnot, still participating in the system because there actually can be. New Hampshire's one of the very few places where like the political process can kind of work in your favor sometimes. Like some things do change. Where do you take on that? Would you ever vote in elections in New Hampshire?
Well, yes, I definitely would, because it's a tool that's available to us. It's like, I mean, it's not like, I don't really, and I disagree with a lot of, I guess, more anarchist types on this stance, that I don't think there's anything wrong with voting when it's there. I think that there is something wrong with the ability to vote. Once we have it, it's just using it or not, because the statement that people make by not voting, supposedly, no one hears that. They just listen to, they just count the votes as a legitimization of whatever they're doing. And so, for example, votes for, the proverbial or the real Ron Paul, for example, is big. It's a big public, unavoidable voice of disdain for the powers that be. And it's something different when you say, oh well, you all, you have terrible. There's always that argument of, oh well, you complain about everything, but you all voted for this guy. It's like, well, no, we didn't. Well, you didn't vote for anyone else, so everyone who voted, who cared, voted for this guy, and what he's doing, that must be the will of the people. And a silent voice is not necessarily a voice sometimes. And so for that reason, I believe that as long as voting is available to us and it's not a lesser of two evils kind of thing, then we should use it, at least to just throw a monkey wrench in the whole process.
I somewhat agree. Federally wise, I don't think I'd ever vote in a federal election ever again. Like I regret voting for Gary Johnson. That was before I was trying to still hold on to that last hope, and after I did so, the wife yelled at me about, like, how could you even do that? I'm right. I shouldn't have done it. But I could see locally voting in some instances. I would have a very high threshold of where I would participate. I would vote for any person running in New Hampshire that's part of the New Hampshire Independence Party, where, like, advocating secession. I would go against my belief in voting and vote. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, I'll do it. Or anyone running on a like some sort of educational platform,
Exactly.
where, like, they're, just them on the ballot is going to wake other people up, because that in itself is going to give more people notice to those ideas that they would never have did. So it's really hard for me to say don't ever vote. Now, first off, we're going to get, we're both going to get bashed on this because you can never be anarchist enough for everyone.
Yeah.
But
enough for anyone on the other flip side of the coin.
Yeah. No matter what you say, no matter where you are, you're not pro-liberty enough for some folk. But no, I would support if they're running in a local race, running on the platform, removing the position that they're running for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would probably participate, but for the most part, I really wouldn't. It really depends on the situation. I don't see. I would help campaign for certain people, but I don't know if I would vote unless it would have to be a very strong, compelling argument for me to do so.
Well, depends on I don't believe voting is ever objectionable as long as the result of your vote, the result of the person you voted for getting into office, as long as that results in a net positive to liberty, as long as that rolls back the size and scope of government, it's a worthy little endeavor to just walk into sacrifice half a day to walk into the damn polling booth and just push a button. Because it's big, otherwise other people are going to be doing that. Now, if for some reason, I understand some people don't want to get their hands dirty that much. They don't want to say, well, I don't want to vote for this guy who's going to be great for liberty, but he's going to oppose he's going to oppose regulationless marijuana legalization or some other thing like that. That is, and he's going to actually not be a perfect. And I can't have that tied in. I can understand that. And if that's your position, then write in Lysander Spooner. Write in Jesus. Jesus was a great guy. I wouldn't vote. Who wouldn't vote for Jesus, right? And he's not gonna come and claim official elected office. And at least that's that statement of, when they're tallying up the votes, it's like, okay, we have 400,000 for Jesus. We have 678,000 for Mitt Romney's distant cousin. Whatever. Who cares? At least it's something on paper that at least is an eyesore for the powers that be. They look at all these people for voting for this guy who's been dead for thousands of years. I mean, I kind of like the sound of that. It's the ultimate form of protest.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It depends on the issue, I guess. I don't want to even have that system in place. I know that's the system we live under. That's what we live in today, unfortunately. Like, nationally, I'll never participate in any national election ever. Like, I'll take that to my death. Like, I'm never going to participate in any national election. I don't believe they should even exist, well, any government should exist. But locally, I think, no, it's weird because, like, I'll go against my beliefs because I hate to say it because I think we could win. So I know that sounds horrible to say, but you get 20,000 people in one little small area, that will obviously make a difference. But I don't want us to outright support it, but at the same time, I can't say never.
Well, yeah, and I participated in the whole electoral process before. I've been around with all that. Basically, I don't think it's something worth a lot of time and effort on. It's worth the time and effort to, for half a day or whatever, find out who this person is. The other half a day, go to the damn polling booth and something like. Other than that, though, you're exactly right. This system, it's not going to be dismantled by just not touching it. And I'd rather use it for, to reduce its size. Well,
there's an argument to be made that not everyone would agree with this, obviously, but there is an argument to be made that you could theoretically use a system to dismantle the system. Now, mind you, that's never worked. That never has worked. It probably never will work. Maybe New Hampshire it will, but the only way I see that happen is if they get enough secessionists in the state house to do something about that, or like a governor running on the platform of secession. maybe a free stater in 10 or 15 years from now will be running as on a secessionist platform. I'll get behind that. I'll vote for sure for anyone advocating secession.
Mm.
But other than that, I can't see myself doing it.
Well, yeah, and voting is kind of a non-issue to a certain extent.
The government's going to do what they're going to do regardless of who you vote in. So, I mean.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's something that a lot of big libertarian conundrum. It's like, what do I do about this abysmal state of affairs that we call the world? And voting sucks, so what can we do? And part of it is just like bitch on Facebook, right?
Oh no, we're keyboard warriors, man.
Yeah,
Libertarian movement are keyboard warriors.
Helmet with the horns and everything, and just go to work with it. And that's something you can do, is just spread the word in everyday conversations, but that still leaves people, for one thing, feeling marginalized because they're the one anarchist they know, and two, feeling ineffective because they just talking is not everything they can do.
Well, one thing you can do, I mean, that's one thing I like about Free State Project is it's not just, I mean, we talked about voting, but that's not the, most people nowadays that I seem to be running into that are Free State participants are not there to vote, and they never are going to vote. A lot of them are voluntarists and anarchists.
Maybe the first rush did, but now that's
yeah, the first that they've evolved past. And I'll be honest, I consider myself part of that crowd as well. But at least they're going there and trying to build that free society they want. Their very act of being there and creating a society they want to build is an act in itself, kind of civil disobedience, because it's not something you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go along and do what you're told, type of scenario.
That's the real way. That's the real thing we can all do, and that's why I moved out, is to, what's the New Hampshire motto? Live free or die. It's not talk free. It's not think free. It's live free. Live in a free way, in a free manner, and that's the real way we can do it. For example, everything I do, like I write for my blog, The Desert Links. I get them published, my articles published in other places. So I do a lot of word spreading as part of my living, right? The other thing I do graphic design, graphic apparel as part of the Graphic Liberation Front to help spread the ideas of liberty through a more covert way of just art, in a way. And then I teach martial arts. That's my main paying gig, so to speak. And part of that is just training up a strong and independent society that doesn't need so much of a nanny state. And the other thing is it's part of building a business outside of the governmental sphere. And in that, just yesterday, we finally managed to start. We're starting the Taekwondo school in Derry, New Hampshire, that I work at. We finally got it to where we're moving to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. And so that's probably the first martial art school in the world, or definitely the first in the state, probably the first in the country and the world to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. And that means that's completely outside of the whole federal tax scheme. And so that's what a lot of people are starting to do around here, is completely transition to a totally different economy, completely outside, build that free society, that free world that doesn't work with the government. It's completely exclusive of the government. And so it's a lot easier to make the case for no government once you already have a world with no government right there that's doing just fine.
So speaking of Bitcoin, how's it feel getting your feet wet with Bitcoin?
It's great. I mean, I haven't done much with it yet. I bought a bunch of drinks.
So on average, the places that you're going to in Manchester, like how many of these places actually accept Bitcoin for transactions?
Well, not a lot. That's more of the Free State network. As far as I know, there's only one restaurant / establishment like that, like a public one that accepts Bitcoin, which is the Powell Cafe in Newmarket. It's a Brazilian bakery that they accept Bitcoin. It's a quaint little place, and it's amazing. And now the Free State, there's an exclusive Free Stater only club that does also accept that. But that's not a public establishment. And so we have had our sights on several several different establishments to target with pressure on that. To say, hey, look, we would all come to your session a whole lot more. In fact, we'll guarantee we'll be here every Saturday or whatever if you accept Bitcoin. And that's a pretty easy sell. We're starting to get to know the owners, etc. And so expect it to happen pretty soon that there's more and more to add to the list. And also, just with the martial arts school I work for, getting them to accept Bitcoin is just a huge step. And then before you know it, you can just keep moving from there.
There you go. Well, you guys, man, I'm telling you, you need to start an agorist, martial arts school that only accepts Bitcoin. That's what you need to do. You need to be the first one to start that.
The exclusive one. Well, I'm starting December 1st. I'm going to start teaching some self-defense classes at Area 23, the super secret Free State office space place.
Well, it's not really secret anymore. I just announced it to the entire internet.
Exactly. It's always, no one knows. I didn't say where it was. But anyway, so I'm going to start doing that for Bitcoin. And then before you know it, one thing at a time. And then right now, Bitcoin's still a new thing. Right now, the agorist economy of the world, and New Hampshire in particular, is still kind of new. But by the time, I'm pretty sure there's going to be something substantial already in place by the time 20,000 signers are reached, and certainly by the time 20,000 movers are reached. And at that point, things are going to be happening really fast. There's a lot of people I've talked to. There's a lot of people who are like fence sitters with this that are completely on board but just have not managed to make that actual transition out of the state-controlled economy, because it's really hard, because you have to find someone you have to pay the bills. You have to find someone who will pay you in non-governmental currency.
Well, it's not so much just paying for it, because you can always use, I mean, that would make it easier, but you can always use your paycheck or whatnot to buy Bitcoin. And I don't think everyone should go full into it. They should use it for most transactions when possible, but not 100. I don't think you should do 100% in every currency, diversified. But the thing is, like with Bitcoin, in my opinion, you really, like the Free State Project can do a thing where they're setting an example. Like, look, there's things you can use Bitcoin for. They need more and more movers that are going to open businesses that accept Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And that way they can get out of the tax system, because to my knowledge, in New Hampshire, they aren't taxing Bitcoin transactions. Most legislatures in New Hampshire don't even know what Bitcoin is.
Yeah,
not yet, anyways.
Most in the world, it's not ever, as far as I can predict, going to be something that will be easily integrable in the system, as it were. Now, that's how agorism starts. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden, let's all just create Galt's Gulch. No. It's, well, hey, I want you, you do this, I need that done. Can I just give you this instead? And then it starts with like a basic barter thing, and then it expands, and then before you know it, you have a small community of friends that trade a lot of goods and services between themselves completely outside of the governmental sphere. And then that grows until you have a whole community, and then again, what we're trying for is a whole state that can work that way. And then you can officially say, okay, I'm no longer accepting government money, and but you have to work up to it.
Well, I know right now, like with Bitcoin, local governments really don't have any clue what it is yet, but the feds do. The feds know what Bitcoin is. The feds, they can't stop Bitcoin, but they can go after companies, especially if they're based in the U.S. They can try and go after companies that are exchanges where you exchange, you transfer your money into Bitcoin. They can go after those people, those companies. Unfortunately, I don't agree with it whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, they can definitely go after that, unfortunately. But that's another reason to support Bitcoin even more. If the feds don't like it, obviously something's good about it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing. How far can you really trace it to be able to shake someone down? Especially, it's going to be harder in the hybrid economy. Say you have a bar, right? And you have managed to get to the point where half your customers pay in Bitcoin and half in Federal Reserve notes. And the Bitcoin stuff is obviously off the books or on a different set of books. And at what point do the feds figure out, do the powers that be figure out that you are accepting, that you have a large amount of income that is completely underground, and at what point do they go investigate, and at what point are they able to tell, to exactly locate how much you've actually been getting in that, and how much are they able to, and then what can they really say about, well, taxing Bitcoin if it's not money? But
Well,
then
they have to admit it's actually money.
yeah, then there you go. And then once that happens, then if they admit it's legitimately actually money, then the U.S. dollar is pretty much gone. And once that happens, even though the government can still survive through taxing Bitcoin, although again, how easily that can be done is just a completely other story. At that point, they've lost the invisible tax of inflation, of just printing more money to be able to pay for all this stuff, and not now they're back to that square one of having to actually vote for tax increases whenever they want to fund some poor project or whatever, instead of just paying for it on the credit of printing more money, et cetera, et cetera. And so they don't want to do either one. And
No, of course not.
I would not want to do the government right now because things are going to go bad for them pretty soon.
By the way, my wife said she'll start up a agorist nanny agency alongside your martial arts studio. You guys can exchange contacts so you guys both get clients.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because you can't have a kick in the whole day long. But definitely, there's a lot of there's a lot of the more hardcore libertarian types don't tend to have children, but I do know of many around here already. And especially, there is a demand. There is something that could be done with that. And I think that nanny services, period, tend to be really, really easy to do outside of the realm of government. Because
there's so many regulations, man. Like, there's so many different regulations if you want to start one up. But that's just with the state in general. No matter what business you want to start, there's regulations up the ass for it.
Think about the predominant nannies in the world, teenage girls. They just, hey, I know, Mrs. Smith has kids and she wants, I know you're all going to pay you to, I'm going to give you some money to watch over my kids. There's no government red tape involved there at all. It's a very personal thing. Watch my kids, I'll give you some money.
Well, no, even then, I can see the state coming down on that. If the state's going to come down and, put an end to, lemonade stands, they're going to put an end to anything if you don't have a license to do it.
They want to. Can they? Lemonade stands, yes, if there's a physical lemonade stand out there that they can go up to and say you need a permit. But if there's some teenage girl watching some kids, and then at that point it's, what can they say? Oh, we don't want you to say, well, no, it's just I'm the neighbor, I'm watching their kid. For free. Well, prove it's for free. Well, prove it's not. It's just at that point you just can't do anything. You just can't nail them unless you get a recorded conversation of every single last damn teenage girl in the whole state just exchanging money over the service.
Well, they can. It's called the NSA. They have all that information now. But
it's impossible to complete.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my thing is, going down this rabbit hole. Obviously, a daycare is a different thing than somebody babysitting. I mean, you have to have a location. You have to have, you're gonna have clientele. You're gonna have other people probably working under you, assistants and whatnot. You're gonna have maybe a curriculum or a schedule for whatever's going on. I'm not an expert on what the wife is, but I'm just saying. I can see them coming down on it. I don't know. I just want to see people going to the Free State Project and starting businesses without permission, actually creating a business as a form of civil disobedience.
Yes, and they are, and that's
Well, I know there's already a few out there, which is amazing. I'd like to see more of them.
Yeah. Well, that's the amazing thing about the internet, especially. Is it's grown to the point. The internet has become such a lifeblood of humanity to the point where now larger businesses are becoming unnecessary, and so you don't need to have a big respected company. You don't need to have hang your shingle outside, so the proverbial sign, in order to have a good thriving business, because now the word of mouth spreads so well, so efficiently, so perfectly online that you can have an entirely clandestine word of mouth business and just feed yourself on that. You can just be, hey, I'm the Nana, we all know. Someone messages some group on Facebook about, and then they put you in contact with this person, and then it's all like a friend one-on-one kind of thing, and there's completely no structure in place for a government to look at and scrutinize and say that should not be happening. You should be giving us money. It's going to, and there's going to be so many of these. It's not going to be so much one person runs a big daycare. It's going to be with several employees. It's going to be each of those employees runs their own separate private practice, and then you just can't target that one big host.
You know, one thing I'm actually surprised at that the government never kind of ever went after, except for, I guess, in regards to prostitution, is Craigslist. You think about it, Craigslist is like this great, agorist marketplace. If you think about it, I mean, yeah, the government came down and kind of put an end to the prostitutes on there, but for the most part, that's it's local everywhere for Craigslist. You know, I've sold stuff on Craigslist. I've bought stuff on Craigslist. You know, many other people have. You know, I go meet someone, sell whatever it is, because I'm a phone geek. I go through a phone every couple months. I sell my phone while it's still hot and good, and use that funds to buy something else. But people sell stuff and services on Craigslist all the time, and they're not paying some fee or not getting permission to do it. They're just posting an ad.
Yeah, and some people do that for a living. Some people just buy and sell things off of Craigslist, like, again, for eBay and Amazon, etc. But on Craigslist, it's just a more ground level thing. They do that for a living because that's how they do their service. Oh, guitar lessons, hit me up, and then they have their own little completely off the radar business right there, and all I have to do is find a way, just make sure it's concealable from the government. And now that's, again, if you say I only accept Bitcoin, there's another layer right there, or I only accept silver, or I don't accept dollars. And then every form of payment is unique. Like, oh, this person gave me some silver coins, this person gave me this old antique this in exchange for this person did in exchange with services, and at some point you just can't. This exposes the ridiculousness of taxation completely, because you just can't say we get part of your money, part of your proceeds of your doing business, without just going completely ridiculous. All you can do at that point for taxation is just say, okay, I'm going to just come into your house and just take some money. I'm just going to raid you like a bandit. And then, oh wait, now you see the violence inherent in the system, right? Now you see that they're just a bunch of bandits, and that's what it's.
That's all they are. I mean, taxation is nothing more than robbery. It's enslavement, but it's what's yours is yours. Who are they to come in and tax your business or tax whatever it is you're doing with your life? Because all income is taxed. Because no matter what you're using your income on. Sales tax is still a tax on income because you're using your income to buy something. You're using your income to buy a service or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And there's ways you can say, ways you can phrase that make it seem semi-legitimate. Like, okay, the government is a public good.
They had a vote.
Yeah, we have to like a percentage of that. And it looks a little bit more proper when it's like, okay, report your income and give a percentage of this in order to sustain society. But then when it comes to the point where everyone has underground type income, no one knows what anyone makes, and the only way the government can survive is by just randomly taking from people. Then it just really starkly, they show up, they ask their protection money, you give them money, and they have to, it becomes a much more blatantly mafia, much more blatantly, band of masterless samurai raiding the village, and then, it becomes like a Seven Samurai thing all over again. And then it all breaks down at that point.
It's amazing to me how even like conservatives that are very anti-government, they're like, we're for low taxes. We don't think we think we're taxed enough already, but they still support the system of taxation in the government to start with. They just don't want themselves to be taxed, and to me, this just seems ridiculous.
Well, yeah, and that all goes back to the social contract of if you're going to be here and there's a few different services, we all agree by living here.
Well, who will build the roads?
Yeah, and then the problem is then what's essential and what isn't, and can you opt out? The thing is, there's nothing wrong with the social contract if you can opt out. But the thing is, you can't. It has been decided by you by faceless people thousands of years ago or whatever, and then just too bad. It's like
I agree. Like my whole thing is, and this is where I kind of disagree with some other anti-government people, where I will give the compromise that I'd be willing to, let me opt out of your system. You can have it. Anyone can voluntarily be a part of it. Just, I want out. I want out of it. I want out of the social contract, the system, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to participate in it. I'll be peaceful with you. You be peaceful with me. Just leave me the hell alone.
Mm-hmm. And like you can even say, well, if the terrorists ever come for me and I didn't pay my dues or whatever, then fine, let them bomb me. And which is substantially harder because you got to then it's when you protect the whole community, there's the freeloader thing. But that's the thing is there has at some point we have to come to the collective. As much as I hate that word, the collective conclusion that not everyone is going to pay their fair share, and that's okay. Is that sometimes in the world, we all pay for our individual services, but there are some public goods, like for example, a business needs to pay. They pave the whole parking lot and the road out to their business because they need it for their customers, and then people who paid nothing profit from that. We're going to have to come to the moral conclusion that there's nothing wrong with that. That sometimes it just has to happen.
Here's my thing. Kind of going against liberals with this about they'll attack a corporate. Well, first off, a corporation would not exist with no state. The corporations only exist because of the state.
I thought there.
But that's a whole other philosophical argument. My point being, is that if this company is so profitable, they're obviously selling a good or service to the community that the community wants. They're getting their fair share from the product or the service, So they want to attack the same company that is providing the service for the community. If they weren't making such huge sums of money, they wouldn't be providing a good service or product that would not be benefiting the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and the anti-corporate line, it really falls apart unless you're a complete anarcho-communist who just wants to live in a, no offense to any reasonable anarcho-communists out there, but who wants to just live in a prehistoric commune, and that's it. Anyone else has to love corporations to a certain extent because that's who you want to leech off of. Is in either you're okay with them keeping all their money because you morally think they're okay to exist, you think that they are, they made people happy, that's why they're rich. Or if you think they owe you a lot of money, you love them because they're the ones that finance all your social programs. So they have all the money.
See, the thing is, like with corporations, right, if we're going to go down this one, the state allows the people that run those corporations not to be, because it's the corporation that did it, not the actual human being. But that's a whole thing from the state. If we lived in a voluntary society, whoever owns or runs that company would be held responsible for any wrongdoing that that company does, like whether it's polluting something or, stealing something from another individual. I don't know what it would be, but if they're doing something wrong, the person that actually put that policy or did that action would be held responsible. Not, we'll fine the company $1 million or whatever, like none of the, like the whole thing that happened with BP years ago in the Gulf, where like weren't they fined like some astronomical number, like 22 billion, or for the cleanup or something like that. Do you think one single person on their board, or the CEOs, or whatever, anyone running that company, paid a dime of that, or faced any kind of repercussions for it? No, of course not, because the company took the damage,
Exactly.
the corporation. But that, again, that's from the state. If we didn't have
Yeah.
the state, whoever's running it would be held responsible, not the actual corporation.
And I've worked in bankruptcy law before, and corporations make absolute legal sense to have, because otherwise, in this over legislated world, you could be held accountable for so many things. Like if you have like um, a moving business, and you hire some kid to drive your moving truck around, and he runs over a kid, and then you can be taken for all your worth because it was your car that did that. And so you have to have a corporation to protect your personal assets. But that's only because we have a government in place that someone can just convince to come take all your stuff. And so corporations are an absolute necessity in this current legal structure, which is, again, why they exist in the first place. The problem is this current legal structure where you can be sued for whatever, where someone can make the case to the powers that be that they're entitled to all your stuff.
No, I completely agree. I agree with you. So, anywho, what else is going on in your neck of the world, man? What's on your thoughts?
Well, just living the dream up in here. I mean, it's really a very tight-knit community of people, very tight-knit society. A lot of stuff can get done. There's a very generous, there's a spirit of generosity in here, that's for sure. A lot of people share what they have very readily. And for example, just a few weeks ago, I helped a new mover move into their house in Ware, and it was a family of, I think, 3 or 4, and people like myself and drove 45 minutes all the way up there just to help them unload and move for free, just because, hey, new neighbor, yay, not even neighbor, new way out there neighbor, and then just a spontaneous order took place right there. Just people showed up, helped them move out. They had the whole 2-story house full of possessions unloaded from the moving truck in under an hour. Just, there we go. By smiling, happy, dedicated people who got nothing in return other than the actual satisfaction of providing a service to their community. And then, I was talking to the owner there. It's like, hey, you got a nice pool there. Hey, so pool party next summer? It says, we'll invite you. So there we go. All of a sudden, everyone's happy. Everything works out. And there's a whole lot of that going on, not because anything's different here, but just because the kinds of people that want to come up here to make a difference for liberty tend to be committed, great people. And once you build a community like that, then you just completely obsolete any notions of, well, we have to force people to do this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we both agreed that good ideas don't require force. But that's one thing that I kind of noticed that is kind of a stereotype of libertarians and whatnot, that we're so individualistic that we don't even want to belong in any kind of community or whatnot. Like, I want to be part of a community that, is nonviolent, that advocates peace and liberty. I don't want to be part of a, community that thinks they can steal from me, and that's what I really see from the Free State Project.
Well, and that's that sort of myth of selfish libertarians is probably one of the biggest obstacles to fence sitters, because they're like, well, yeah, I mean, I believe all that stuff, but I care for my fellow man too. And that's the good thing about, I'm just totally saying nothing but good things about the Free State Project.
Yeah, I know.
That's completely fine with me. But once you see this world of people just sharing and everything, and then, like downstairs there's a, big case of, there's a big case of beer that shows up in the fridge, and then people are like, oh, and then someone comes, hey, I had a couple of them, here's the money for this. Like, people just share all the time, and then through the honor code, honestly, like, reimburse for that, and then sometimes, oh no, don't worry about it, it's everyone's everyone. No one takes count of what how much they're owed. It's the whole communist paradise thing. Only it's voluntary. It's the whole man. We'll just share around.
You can't drop the communist, man. You're gonna scare people away from the Free State Project, man. You can't drop the C word.
Well, I'm saying is the answer to if they did the completely wrong one. They say, well, let's make a society, let's make a system that forces all this. It's like, no, you don't need that. When you have coercion out of the way, people come together because people are decent human beings, and that's all coercive systems of government. The intellectual arguments operate under the presumption that there are enough good-hearted people who can get into government and decide good things for the rest of the people. Isn't it that some people are good enough to make a change in the world? That's how they back up their coercion. But now, if you're willing to say that there are some people that will be able to take care of us and take care of the common good once put in power, then you're willing to admit that those same people will also act that same way outside of power. In fact, less corrupted by power. And so saying, oh no, nothing will get done because the people are too selfish, they will not take care of their fellow man. Well, then why are you trying to, through a democratic process, get people to vote for good if they won't do good in their own free time? And so I think we're finding out really quick through practical applications that here we go. People are willing to help their fellow man, to live in peace, to trust, to all these peace, love, and brown rice, all that thing. They're willing to do that without the state. In fact, the less that there's a state in the system, the more they're willing to do that.
No, I agree. All right, before we put an end to this the show here, I want to point out, when the hell are you gonna get your YouTube channel going? Every time I talk to you, I push this on you, and every time I literally will push you until you actually start putting up content, because it's been far too long.
Work on it. I mean, I'm about to change locations. As soon as that happens, you're going to start seeing some stuff. That's all I can say. Very soon. Let's say by the end of November. At the latest.
The end of November, man, it's a month away. You got time. Put something up. Do something.
Okay. Middle of the month.
I'll give you 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Put something up. Get it done.
Or then you'll send the SWAT team.
Yeah, I'll send a SWAT team and a bearcat to your place and put a gun to your head and force you.
Exactly.
All right. So where can everyone find you at?
Okay, well, I run the Desert Links, thedesertlinks.com. A lot of good stuff there, a lot of cool articles, etc., etc. You can follow me on Twitter at thedesertlinks. And all right. There we go.
There you go. All right, you can find me at Voluntary Rebel on Twitter. I got a Facebook page for this, for the show, Rebel Love Show. Just go to facebook.com/The Rebel Love Show. I'm going to try and do at least 3 to 4 episodes a week. May have different co-hosts, but hopefully Joel will come back on, get some other guests on. It'll be a good time. If you got any questions, comments, leave them in the comments on the YouTube channel. Hopefully I get this up as a podcast. That's my goal. I got to get that going. I want to really do this as a podcast as well. But anyways, that's all I got. Joel, pleasure as always. Keep up the good work in New Hampshire. I'll see you there hopefully soon. And peace, guys.
Peace.